I always thought my life was ordinary, and maybe that's why the shock hit me so hard when I found out the truth about my father. I'm not proud to say it, but for the longest time, I'd considered my family perfect in a quiet, suburban way. We weren't rich or flashy, we didn't take vacations to exotic places, but we had a rhythm, a sense of stability that I clung to. My mum cooked dinner every night, my dad read the newspaper in his armchair, and I fell asleep to the sound of him watching late-night football. That was our ordinary. If you had asked me back then who my father was, I would have said he was dependable, calm, a little distant maybe, but steady like a wall you could lean on. He worked long hours as a regional sales manager, always travelling, always carrying the faint smell of airport coffee and hotel soap when he came home. I used to run to the door when I heard his car pull into the driveway. He would lift me into his arms, even when I got too big for it, and say, "There's my girl." I held on to those words for years. The first crack in that perfect picture didn't feel dramatic. It felt small, accidental. I was 25, back home temporarily after a rough breakup and a job that hadn't worked out. My mum was determined to declutter the past, as she called it, so we spent a Saturday in the attic surrounded by old boxes and the thick smell of dust and insulation. I remember kneeling on the wooden floor, my jeans collecting grey streaks, flipping through folders of old bills and warranty papers. My mum was humming downstairs, some old love song from the radio. The house felt safe, familiar, until I found the envelope. It was thick, manila, unmarked. It had slipped between two boxes as if it didn't want to be seen. Something about that made me pause. I told myself it was just old paperwork, but when I opened it, photographs slid into my lap. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. There was my father. He was younger in some of the pictures, older in others, but it was him. The same crooked smile, the same dimple in his left cheek, the same way he tilted his head slightly when he laughed. And beside him, a woman. She wasn't my mother. She had dark hair that fell past her shoulders and eyes that looked directly into the camera with a quiet confidence. In some photos, she was standing close to him. In others, she was holding a baby. A little girl with curls. A boy who looked about 5, clinging to my father's leg. I remember staring at the boy's face. He had my father's eyes. My heart didn't race immediately. It slowed, like my body had decided this information was too heavy to process all at once. There were dozens of photos, birthdays, a Christmas tree in a living room I didn't recognize, a beach trip, my father building a sandcastle with the boy, the woman leaning into him as the wind tangled her hair. In every single photo, he looked happy. Not stressed, not tired from work, not distracted. Happy. I felt something shift inside me, something subtle but permanent. Like a picture frame falling slightly crooked on a wall you've stared at your whole life. I shoved everything back into the envelope when I heard my mum's footsteps on the stairs. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to look normal. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe they were distant relatives. Maybe it was a business associate and her kids. But deep down, something cold had already settled in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to the ceiling from when I was 8. I could hear my parents' bedroom door close down the hall. I wondered if my mother knew. The thought felt unbearable. Over the next few days, I watched my father differently. He didn't notice. He came home from work, loosened his tie, kissed my mum on the cheek. He asked me about job applications. He laughed at something on the news. How could someone carry that kind of secret and look so normal? I started paying attention to small things. The way he would sometimes step outside to take a phone call. The way his expression softened when he read certain text messages. The way he guarded his phone just a little too carefully. Memories began rearranging themselves in my mind. The business trips that lasted 3 or 4 days. The weekends he said he had conferences in nearby cities. The time he missed my college graduation because of an urgent client meeting. At the time, I had defended him. I told people he worked hard for us, that his job demanded sacrifice. Now those sacrifices felt like theft. I needed proof beyond photographs. I needed something concrete, something undeniable. So I did something I never thought I would do. I searched. I found her name written on the back of one photo. Just a first name and a year. It was enough. It didn't take long. Social media, public records, old tagged posts. And then, there they were. Her profile picture showed her standing in front of a small blue house. 2 teenagers stood beside her. The boy from the photos was older now, taller than her. The girl had braces and my father's exact smile. I felt physically ill. The dates lined up perfectly. My father hadn't just had an affair, he had another family. For nearly 17 years. 17. I did the math over and over, hoping I had miscalculated. But the numbers refused to change. He had been splitting his life in half while I was learning to ride a bike. While I was crying over my first heartbreak. While my mother was packing his suitcase for trips that apparently ended somewhere else entirely. I sat on my bedroom floor with my laptop glowing in the dark. I scrolled through years of photos, birthday captions. So proud of these two. Family weekend getaway. Couldn't do life without them. There were no pictures of him tagged directly, but he was there. In reflections, in cropped shoulders, in a hand resting on a cake knife, like a ghost who belonged to them more than he belonged to us. The turning point came 2 weeks later. He said he was leaving for a 3-day conference in another state. Something inside me snapped. I followed him. I told myself I wouldn't actually go through with it, that I just needed to see which direction he drove. But I kept driving behind him, my hands tight on the steering wheel. He didn't head toward the highway. He drove 40 minutes across town, to the blue house. I parked half a block away, my heart pounding so loudly I thought I might pass out. I watched him get out of his car. He didn't look rushed. He didn't look guilty. He looked relieved. The front door opened before he even reached it. The boy, no, the young man now, ran down the steps. My father wrapped him in a hug, a real one, the kind I hadn't received in years. The girl followed, then the woman. She kissed him, like she had every right to. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting in my car in our driveway for a long time, staring at our house. The porch light was on. My mum was probably inside making dinner, assuming her husband was boarding a plane. I felt like I was holding a bomb. For days I said nothing. I watched my mother move through the house with quiet devotion. She folded his laundry. She asked me if I thought he seemed stressed lately. She blamed herself for his distance. That's when the anger came. Not just at him, at the years, at the lies, at the way he had stolen her reality. I confronted him on a Sunday afternoon. My mother had gone to visit a friend. It was just the two of us. He was in the kitchen, cutting apples like everything in the world was simple. I asked him how the conference had been. He smiled. Productive. I followed you, I said. The knife stopped mid-slice. Silence filled the kitchen like smoke. He didn't ask what I meant. He just closed his eyes. And in that small movement, everything was confirmed. We sat at the kitchen table for hours. He didn't yell. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try to defend himself at first. He said he met her 18 years ago during a work trip. It just happened. It was supposed to be temporary, but she got pregnant. He said he felt responsible. He said he couldn't abandon his child. He said he thought he could manage both lives. He said he loved us. He said he loved them too. As if love was something you could duplicate without consequence. I asked him how he could look at my mother every day and lie. He said he convinced himself he was protecting everyone. I asked him if he ever planned to tell us. He didn't answer. That silence was louder than anything else. Telling my mother was the hardest thing I've ever done. I thought he would do it. He didn't. So I did. I watched her world collapse in real time. I watched disbelief turn into confusion, then into a kind of quiet devastation that scared me more than screaming would have. She didn't cry at first. She just kept asking, how long? When she found out the number of years, she sat down on the edge of the bed like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. 30 years of marriage, and almost half of it shared. She walked into the bathroom and locked the door. I sat outside on the hallway carpet, listening to the sound of her breathing on the other side. It wasn't sobbing. It was shallow, controlled, like she was trying not to break loudly. In the weeks that followed, our house turned into something unrecognizable. Conversations were whispers. Doors closed softly. My father slept in the guest room until he moved out completely. He didn't move into an apartment. He moved into the blue house. That detail felt like a final betrayal. It wasn't a mistake he was ending. It was a life he was choosing. I didn't speak to him for nearly a year. During that time, I watched my mother transform in ways I never expected. At first, she was hollow. She moved slowly, like someone underwater. She stared at nothing. She reread old anniversary cards as if searching for clues she had missed. Then something shifted. She started going for walks in the morning. She cut her hair. She signed up for a painting class at the community centre. I remember the first time I heard her laugh again. It startled me. It sounded fragile but real, like a glass ornament catching light. Meanwhile, I carried anger like a second skin. But here's the part that's hard to admit. My anger wasn't clean. Because those two teenagers hadn't asked for any of this either. They were just kids who thought they had a normal father. One afternoon, I received a message. It was from the girl. She said she knew who I was. She said she was sorry. Sorry. As if any of this was her fault. We met in a coffee shop halfway between our worlds. She looked so much like him it hurt. But she also looked nervous, fragile. She told me she found out the truth only a few months before I did. She had overheard an argument. She had searched his name online and found my mother's social media profile. She showed me a picture of my parents at their anniversary dinner. I didn't know, she whispered, and I believed her. We talked for hours about him, about childhood, about the lies we both grew up believing. She told me he travelled a lot in their house too. She said she always wondered where he went. That's when it hit me. He hadn't just split his time, he had split himself. And no one ever got all of him. Not really. Months later, I finally agreed to meet him for coffee. He looked older, smaller somehow. He said he never meant to hurt us. I told him intention didn't erase impact. He cried. I had never seen my father cry before. It didn't fix anything, but it made him human in a way I hadn't allowed myself to see. The truth is, discovering my father had another family didn't just change how I saw him. It changed how I saw love. For a long time, I didn't trust it. I sabotaged relationships before they could get serious. I waited for betrayal like it was inevitable. Therapy helped. Time helped. Distance helped. I learned that his choices were his, not destiny written into my future. My parents divorced quietly. No dramatic courtroom scenes, just signatures and a division of furniture and years. My mother kept the house. The porch light still turns on every evening. Sometimes I sit there with her and watch the sky change colours. We don't talk about him much anymore, but sometimes, when the air is soft and the neighbourhood is quiet, she'll say, "I really did love him." And I believe that too. Love existed. So did betrayal. Both can be true. I have met my half-siblings more than once now. It's strange and complicated and sometimes painful, but it's also honest. We share a father. We share wounds. We are not enemies. If anything, we are evidence of how far-reaching one person's choices can be. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive my father, but I've stopped carrying his secret like it's mine. That's why I'm telling you this. Because secrets don't just live in the dark. They live in the people forced to protect them. And I protected his for far too long. Now, when I think about my childhood, it feels both real and unreal at the same time. The porch light, the newspaper, the late-night football games. They happened. But so did the blue house. So did the other birthdays. The truth is, I didn't just lose the father I thought I had. I lost the simplicity of believing that love alone is enough to keep a family whole. And maybe that's the hardest part. But I'm building something new now. A life that isn't divided. A love that doesn't require secrets. And even though part of me will always ache when I remember the day I opened that envelope, another part of me is stronger because I did. Because sometimes the truth shatters you, and sometimes it sets you free.